It was just an accident, wasn't she? My mom's voice trembled as she clutched my hospital bed railing. Please, Amanda, don't say anything that could tear this family apart. I lay there, my body aching from multiple fractures, staring at the ceiling while trying to process her words. The memory of Janet, my mother-in-law, placing her hands on my back moments before I tumbled down our basement stairs, played on repeat in my mind. I'm Amanda Chen, 32, and until yesterday, I thought my biggest problem was Janet's passive-aggressive comments about my inability to give her son children. Now, lying in his hospital bed with 3 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, and a concussion, I realize how wrong I've been. Mrs. Wilson? A deep voice interrupted my thoughts. A tall man in a security uniform stood at my door, tablet in hand. I'm Marcus Thompson, head of hospital security. Could we speak privately for a moment? My mother's grip on the railing tightened. I'm her mother. Anything you need to say? Ma'am, Marcus cut in firmly, this needs to be private. After my mother reluctantly left, Marcus closed the door and pulled up a chair. Mrs. Wilson, our parking lot cameras captured something concerning when you were brought in yesterday. He paused, studying my face. Your mother-in-law's statement about finding you at the bottom of the stairs doesn't match what we saw. My heart started racing. What do you mean? He turned his tablet around, showing me footage from what appeared to be a neighbor's security camera. The angle perfectly captured Janet's car arriving at my house, her entering through the back door, using her own key that my husband had given her without my consent, and leaving 40 minutes later, looking rushed. We also have footage of her arriving at the hospital before the ambulance. Marcus continued, swiping to another video. She told the staff she found you unconscious, but our cameras show she was already here, waiting. Tears welled up in my eyes. For 3 years, I'd endured Janet's subtle cruelty. The comments about my fertility struggles, the accidental spilling of drinks on my favorite clothes, the constant criticism of my cooking, my career, my existence. My husband David always dismissed it. That's just how Mom is, he'd say. You're being too sensitive. There's more, Marcus said quietly. Your neighbor's camera caught something else. He played another clip. Through the basement window, you could clearly see 2 figures, Janet and me. Then, unmistakably, her hands shoving my back, my body disappearing from view. I covered my mouth, suppressing a sob. The pain in my ribs intensified. Mrs. Wilson, Marcus leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've seen too many cases where family violence was swept under the rug. The pattern escalates. Next time could be worse. My mom wants me to stay quiet, I whispered. She says it would destroy David if I accused his mother. And what about what Janet destroyed in you? Marcus asked. Your safety, your trust, your right to feel secure in your own home? Before I could respond, there was a commotion outside my door. Janet's voice carried through, loud and concerned. I simply must see my dear daughter-in-law. I brought her favorite soup. Marcus quickly stood, positioning himself between me and the door. Mrs. Wilson, you have options. We've already notified the police, but whether you press charges is your decision. Whatever you choose, know that we have the evidence secured. Janet burst in, carrying a container of soup, her face a mask of motherly concern. She faltered when she saw Marcus. Oh, I didn't realize Amanda had company. Her eyes darted between us, a flicker of unease crossing her features. Marcus straightened to his full height. Mrs. Janet Wilson, perfect timing. The police would like to speak with you about yesterday's incident. The soup container slipped from Janet's hands, crashing to the floor. Behind her, I saw my mother's face go pale. For the first time since my marriage to David, I saw fear in Janet's eyes, the same fear I'd felt at the top of those stairs. The same fear I'd lived with every time she'd shown up unannounced at my house. Amanda, Janet's voice turned sickly sweet. Surely you told him it was an accident? You know how clumsy you can be. I looked at the spilled soup on the floor, then at Marcus's supportive expression, and finally at my mother's pleading face in the doorway. This was my moment to choose. Continue being the victim of Janet's escalating abuse or stand up for myself, regardless of the family fallout. I took a deep breath, ignoring the pain in my ribs, and pressed the call button for my nurse. It was time to tell my story. The police interview wasn't what I expected. Detective Sarah Mills stepped beside my hospital bed, her notebook open, eyes kind but professional. Take your time, Mrs. Wilson. Start from the beginning. I glanced at Marcus, who stood by the door like a guardian, before speaking. Janet started coming to our house unannounced after David gave her a key 3 months ago. She said she needed it for emergencies, but she'd show up whenever I was alone. Your husband was okay with this? Detective Mills asked. David, I paused, the truth feeling bitter in my mouth. David never saw how she really was. To him, she was just being helpful, checking on me because of my fertility treatments. But she'd go through our things, rearrange our bedroom, criticize everything. As I spoke, the detective's pen moved steadily across her notebook. I told her about the escalating incidents, how Janet had accidentally deleted my work presentations from my laptop, how she'd thrown away the fertility medication she deemed unnecessary, how she'd started telling neighbors I was mentally unstable. Yesterday, my voice shook. I was organizing the basement when I heard her come in. She started talking about how David deserved better, how I was failing as a wife. When I turned to leave, I couldn't finish. We have it on video, Marcus interjected quietly. Just then, David burst into the room, his face a storm of confusion and anger. Amanda, Mom's been arrested. What's going on? Detective Mills stood, positioning herself between us. Mr. Wilson, this is an active investigation. You'll need to step outside. Investigation? That's ridiculous. My mother would never hurt anyone. He tried to move past her, but Marcus blocked his path. David, I called out, my voice stronger than I felt. There's video footage. Security cameras caught everything. He froze. What? Detective Mills gestured to Marcus, who pulled up the footage on his tablet. David's face drained of color as he watched his mother deliberately push me down the stairs. No, he whispered. There must be some mistake. Mom said you tripped. She lied, I said softly, like she's been lying about everything. David sank into a chair, his world visibly crumbling. All those times you tried to tell me. I didn't listen. I didn't want to believe. Mr. Wilson, Detective Mills interrupted, we'll need your statement as well. There's evidence suggesting a pattern of harassment. My mother appeared in the doorway, wringing her hands. Amanda, please. Janet's family. Think about what this will do to everyone. I am thinking about everyone, I replied, surprising myself with my steadiness. I'm thinking about every woman who's been told to stay quiet for family peace. I'm thinking about how Janet might treat David's next wife if I let this go. I'm thinking about myself for once. David looked up, tears in his eyes. Next wife? I can't stay, David. Not after this. Not after years of you choosing not to see what was happening. Detective Mills cleared her throat. Mrs. Wilson, we'll need to take formal statements from everyone. Given the evidence and the severity of your injuries, we're pursuing felony charges. My mother gasped. Felony? But 3 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, concussion, Marcus listed off, plus the premeditation shown in the security footage. She waited for Mrs. Wilson to be alone, used a key she shouldn't have had, and deliberately chose the basement stairs. David stood suddenly. I need to see my mother. She's in custody, Detective Mills stated. And given the circumstances, we recommend no contact between Mrs. Wilson and any of the involved parties for now. As they left, the detective leading David away, Marcus escorting my mother out, I felt a strange sense of peace beneath my physical pain. For the first time in years, I didn't have to pretend everything was fine. My phone lit up with messages from Janet's friends, David's family, all demanding I drop the charges. I turned it off without reading them. Instead, I reached for the notebook beside my bed and began writing. Everything Janet had done, every time David had dismissed my concerns, every moment I'd been told to keep quiet for the family's sake. This wasn't just about the stairs anymore. This was about breaking free from a pattern of abuse that had been disguised as family loyalty. The sun was setting outside my hospital window, casting long shadows across my bed. Tomorrow would bring more questions, more pressure, more attempts to make me back down. But for now, I had the truth on my side, captured on video for everyone to see. And for once, that felt like enough. 2 months after the incident, I sat in the courtroom, watching Janet face the judge. She traded her designer outfits for simple business attire, trying to project an image of a harmless grandmother. But the security footage, playing on the courtroom screens, told a different story. Mrs. Janet Wilson, the judge's voice resonated through the chamber. The evidence presented here shows not just a single act of violence, but a calculated pattern of abuse and intimidation. I felt David shift uncomfortably beside me. After weeks of therapy and seeing the full extent of his mother's actions, he'd finally chosen to support my decision to press charges. It had cost him relationships with several family members, but for the first time in our marriage, he was standing with me instead of his mother. Your Honor, Janet's lawyer began, my client has been an upstanding member of the community for decades. This unfortunate incident. Detective Mills interrupted, standing. We have documented evidence of Mrs. Janet Wilson using her key to enter the victim's house 27 times without permission. Security footage shows her deliberately pushing her daughter-in-law down a flight of stairs. Hospital records confirm multiple serious injuries. This was attempted murder, not an incident. Janet's face contorted. I was protecting my son. She burst out, ignoring her lawyer's attempt to quiet her. She's been denying him children, poisoning him against me. I had to do something. The courtroom fell silent. Her outburst had just confirmed everything we'd been trying to prove about her state of mind. The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. Mrs. Wilson, you've just demonstrated exactly why this court needs to take severe action. You show no remorse, no recognition of the criminality of your actions. I watched as Janet's face crumpled, the reality of her situation finally hitting her. The judge sentenced her to 7 years in prison with mandatory psychiatric evaluation and a permanent restraining order. As the bailiff led her away, she turned to David one last time. Son, please, don't let her destroy our family. But David stood firm, his hand finding mine. You destroyed it yourself, Mom, the moment you decided to hurt my wife. Outside the courthouse, my mother approached me, tears in her eyes. Amanda, I'm so sorry. I was wrong to ask you to stay quiet. Seeing everything in court today, I never realized how bad it was. I accepted her hug carefully, my ribs still tender. I know, Mom, but it's time we all learned that family peace shouldn't come at the cost of someone's safety. Marcus, who had testified about the security footage, stopped by to check on me. You did good, Mrs. Wilson. Your case has inspired 3 other women in similar situations to come forward. That news made everything worth it. My private nightmare had become a beacon of hope for others. 6 months later, I stood in front of a support group for survivors of family violence, sharing my story. David sat in the back, supporting my decision to help others. Our marriage was different now. Stronger in some ways, more cautious in others. We started couples therapy, learning to build boundaries and trust again. The hardest part wasn't the physical pain, I told the group. It was fighting the pressure to stay quiet, to put family image above personal safety. But true family doesn't demand your silence in the face of abuse. After the meeting, a young woman approached me, clutching my printed story from the local paper. Your courage made me realize I don't have to accept my mother-in-law's abuse, she whispered. I'm leaving next week. That night, in our new house, far from the one with the basement stairs, David and I sat on our porch, talking about the future. The fertility clinic called, I said softly. They say we can restart treatments whenever we're ready. He squeezed my hand. Only if you want to. No pressure, no timeline. We do this on our terms, no one else's. I smiled, feeling the weight of Janet's expectations finally lifting. We'd chosen to make our story public, using it to raise awareness about family violence and the importance of believing victims. The security footage had been used in training programs for hospital staff, teaching them to look for signs of abuse. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Another hospital had adopted the security protocol he developed after my case, ensuring that surveillance footage would be immediately reviewed in suspicious injury cases. You know, David said, Mom's actions actually revealed something beautiful. All the people who were willing to stand up and help you. Marcus, Detective Mills, even the neighbors who shared their security footage. I nodded, thinking of the support group, the other survivors finding their voice. Janet had tried to silence me, but instead, she'd given me a platform to speak louder than ever. As the sun set, I felt at peace. The stairs hadn't broken me, they'd shown me my own strength, the power of truth, and the importance of real family, the kind that lifts you up instead of pushing you down. The text message arrived while I was arranging flowers in my shop. You're not invited to Emma's wedding, David wrote. We don't want you ruining her special day. My hands shook as I set down the roses I'd been trimming, the same blush pink variety I'd already ordered for my daughter's bridal bouquet. My name is Olivia Walker, and at 45, I never imagined I'd be banned from my own daughter's wedding. especially not after spending the last 6 months secretly paying for every detail of her dream day. I sat down at my workbench, surrounded by the sweet scent of fresh flowers and memories. Emma had practically grown up in this shop, sitting at this very bench, watching me create arrangements while doing her homework. Back then, she'd tell me about her dream wedding, the flowers, the dress, the venue. Even at 12, she knew exactly what she wanted. "Mom, when I get married, I want peonies and roses everywhere," she'd say, her eyes sparkling. "And it has to be at River Oak Gardens. Promise we'll make it perfect." I promised, of course. What mother wouldn't? But that was before David left us for his 28-year-old secretary when Emma was 16. Before he poisoned our daughter against me with lies about why our marriage ended, painting himself as the victim and me as the unstable, controlling ex-wife who drove him away. Now, 8 years later, David's new wife, Jessica, was playing mother of the bride, while I was apparently too toxic to even attend. My phone buzzed again. "This is for the best," David wrote. "Emma doesn't need the drama. Jessica's already handled all the arrangements anyway." I took a deep breath, fighting back a smile. "Oh, David, if you only knew." 6 months ago, when Emma announced her engagement, I knew David would try to take over. He'd always been about control and appearances, especially since becoming CEO of his company. But I also knew his dirty little secret. His gambling habit had finally caught up with him. His company was struggling, and he'd leverage everything he owned to keep it afloat. So I'd made some calls. Mr. Chin, my old family friend and Emma's godfather, had connections at River Oak Gardens. "The premier package," he'd said when I called. "For Emma, of course. I'll make sure they only deal with you directly." The venue was just the beginning. I coordinated with every vendor, always staying in the background, letting Jessica believe she was in charge. The flowers would come from my own shop, though I'd arranged for another florist to be the front for delivery. The cake, the catering, the music. I'd chosen everything based on those childhood conversations with Emma. Every detail matched to the dream wedding she described over the years. The irony was almost funny. Jessica had spent months planning a wedding that was already completely arranged and paid for. Every time she thought she was making a decision, she was actually just selecting from options I'd already secured. Another text from David. "Jessica's father is walking her down the aisle. Please respect our wishes and stay away." I set my phone down and walked to the back of my shop, where a hidden cooler held the bridal bouquet I'd been working on for weeks. Blushed pink roses, white peonies, and delicate baby's breath. Exactly what Emma had always wanted. I'd woven tiny pearls from my own wedding dress into the ribbon. A piece of family history Jessica wouldn't know to include. The door chimed and I quickly closed the cooler. Mr. Chen walked in, his face concerned. "Olivia, I just heard from David's secretary. Is it true?" I nodded, showing him the text. "He's banned me from the wedding." Mr. Chen's expression darkened. "After everything you've done, does he have any idea?" "No," I said, managing a small smile. "And that's exactly how I want it to stay. For now." He sat down heavily in my consultation chair. "The vendors are all asking about final payments. Everything's due next week. The money's already in escrow," I assured him. "Everything will be paid on time. David and Jessica won't have to worry about a thing." "And Emma?" he asked softly. "Does she know her mother arranged her dream wedding?" I shook my head, blinking back tears. "She thinks I abandoned her, just like David said. If she knew I was involved, she'd probably change everything just to spite me." Mr. Chen reached across the counter and squeezed my hand. "You're a better person than they deserve, Olivia." "Maybe," I said, looking at the wedding timeline pinned to my bulletin board. "But this isn't about them. It's about keeping a promise I made to my little girl when she was 12. My phone buzzed one more time. A message from Jessica. "I've handled everything perfectly. Emma will have the wedding she always wanted. No thanks to you." I looked at Mr. Chin and finally let myself laugh. "Well," I said, "she's not entirely wrong about that second part." The wedding was in 3 days. David and Jessica had no idea that their perfect plans were actually mine, paid for with the money I'd saved from a decade of running my flower shop. They didn't know about the special arrangements I'd made, the personal touches I'd added, or the surprises I'd planned. They thought they were keeping me away for my daughter's special day. But what they didn't realize was that I would be there in every detail, every flower, every carefully chosen element that would make Emma's childhood dreams come true. I picked up my phone and typed a response to David. Don't worry, everything will be perfect. And for once, I knew exactly how right I was. The day before the wedding, I watched from my shop window as Jessica supervised the loading of her flower arrangements into the delivery van. She stood there in her designer outfit, checking things off her clipboard, completely unaware that every stem had been carefully selected and arranged by me over the past week. The roses look a bit sparse, she complained to the delivery driver, actually, my assistant Mike in a borrowed uniform. Are you sure this is what we ordered? They'll open perfectly by tomorrow morning, ma'am, Mike replied, giving me a subtle wink through the window. The florist guaranteed it. I'd spent 15 years teaching Mike everything I knew about flowers. He understood exactly how to time the blooming of each rose for maximum effect. By the time Emma walked down the aisle, every bloom would be at its peak. My phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Chen. David just tried to put a down payment on the venue. Again. I smiled, remembering David's face when River Oak Gardens told him they had a strict policy against payment plans. He'd been so sure his status as a CEO would convince them to bend the rules. What he didn't know was that I'd already paid in full months ago. How did he take it? I texted back. Not well. Jessica's throwing a fit about having to use their emergency fund. I felt a twinge of satisfaction, quickly followed by guilt. This wasn't about revenge. It was about Emma. Just then, I saw her walk past my shop. My heart clenched as she paused, looking at the window display. For a moment, I thought she might come in. We hadn't spoken in months, not since that disastrous dinner where David announced he would be paying for everything. A father's gift to his daughter, he declared grandly, no expense spared. Emma had looked at me with such disdain that evening. Well, it's not like you could help anyway, Mom. You're just a florist. Just a florist. The words had stung, but not as much as watching my daughter walk away now, without even coming inside. My phone rang, the wedding coordinator I'd hired through Mr. Chen. Mrs. Walker, we have a situation. The groom's mother is insisting on rearranging the seating chart. She says Mr. Harrison's specific requests about table arrangements don't make sense. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Of course, Jessica would try to change things at the last minute. She had no idea that the seating arrangements I planned took into account years of family dynamics, who could sit with whom, which relatives needed to be kept apart, which family friends should be honored with proximity to the main table. Let her make her changes, I said quietly, but keep the original chart. Trust me, by tomorrow morning she'll realize why things were arranged that way. After hanging up, I went to the back room where Emma's bouquet waited in its special cooler. I added the final touch, a tiny locket containing a photo of her grandmother, my mother, who had passed away when Emma was small. Emma probably wouldn't even notice it among the pearls and ribbons, but it mattered to me that a piece of our family history would be with her. The rest of the day passed in a blur of last-minute details. Every few hours brought a new crisis that I had to solve from behind the scenes. Jessica wanted to change the menu. David complained about the music selection. The groom's mother threatened to move the ceremony indoors despite the perfect weather forecast. Through it all, I kept remembering Emma at 12, sitting at my workbench, planning her perfect day. Promise it'll be just like this, Mom, she'd said. Promise you'll make it magical. At sunset, I drove to River Oak Gardens to do one final check. The staff, who knew the truth about who was really in charge, let me slip in through the service entrance. The garden was transforming exactly as I'd envisioned. Twinkling lights strung through the trees, flowers arranged to create natural aisles, every detail perfect. The father of the bride was here earlier, one of the staff whispered, trying to upgrade to champagne he hasn't paid for. I nodded, unsurprised. The premium champagne will be delivered at 9 a.m., I said. But don't tell them that. Let them think their complaints made it happen. As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in one of the venue's windows. I looked tired but calm. Tomorrow, my daughter would have the wedding of her dreams, even if she never knew I was the one who made it happen. My phone buzzed one last time as I got into my car. A message from Emma. Mom, I know you're probably upset about not being invited, but Jessica has made everything so perfect. Maybe if you had put in this kind of effort when I was growing up, things would be different. I started the car, letting the tears I'd been holding back all day finally fall. Part of me wanted to tell her everything about the months of planning, the careful coordination, the savings I'd spent to make her dreams come true. But I didn't. Instead, I typed back, "I hope your day is everything you've ever wanted, sweetie." And I knew it would be, because I had promised. The morning of the wedding dawned exactly as I'd hoped. Clear skies with a gentle breeze, perfect for carrying the scent of roses through the garden. I watched the final preparations through the security cameras Mr. Chen had arranged for me to access. Everything was falling into place. Jessica was already having her meltdown right on schedule. The premium champagne delivery had sent her into a confusion spiral. But we didn't pay for this upgrade, she kept telling the staff. There must be some mistake. David was no better, pacing the grounds in his tuxedo, making frantic calls about the string quartet that had mysteriously been upgraded to include a harpist, Emma's childhood dream edition that he deemed too expensive. Then I saw her. Emma stepped out of the bridal suite in her dress, and my heart stopped. She was beautiful, radiant, exactly as I'd always imagined she would be. The bouquet I'd crafted was perfect in her hands, the roses opened exactly as planned. Through the camera feed, I watched her touch the pearls woven into the ribbon, a puzzled expression crossing her face. My phone buzzed. "Mr. Chen, it's time." I took a deep breath and pressed play on the video I prepared weeks ago. Within seconds, the large screen set up for the reception flickered to life across the venue. David and Jessica froze, staring at the images now playing. It was Emma at 12, sitting at my workbench, describing her dream wedding. "Mom, promise it'll be just like this," her young voice echoed through the garden. The pink roses, the pearls, the harpist playing canon in D. The video continued, showing snippet after snippet I filmed over the years. Emma planning every detail of her future wedding while arranging flowers with me in the shop. Each element she described matched exactly what was now set up around them. Jessica's clipboard clattered to the ground. David's face had gone pale. But I was watching Emma, who stood transfixed, looking from the video to her bouquet, finally noticing her grandmother's locket tucked among the roses. Her hands were shaking as she opened it, finding the photo inside and the tiny note I tucked behind it. "I promised to make it perfect. Love, Mom." Through the camera feed, I saw the exact moment understanding dawn in her eyes. She looked around at everything. The flowers, the lights, the precise arrangement she described as a child, and I saw her begin to cry. "Where's my mother?" I heard her ask through the audio feed. "Where's Mom?" David stepped forward, his face a mask of forced calm. "Emma, sweetheart, let's not get distracted. Jessica arranged everything." "No," Emma cut him off, her voice strong and clear. "No more lies, Dad. These are Mom's roses. This is her work. I'd know it anywhere." She held up the bouquet. "No one else would know to weave pearls into the ribbon. No one else would remember the exact shade of pink I wanted." She turned to Jessica, who was stammering about contracts and vendors. "You didn't plan this wedding, did you?" Before Jessica could respond, Mr. Chen stepped forward. "No, she didn't. Your mother did. Every detail, every element, exactly as you dreamed it. She paid for everything months ago." The garden fell silent except for the gentle music of the harpist, still playing canon in D, just as 12-year-old Emma had requested in the video still playing on the screens. "Why?" Emma's voice broke. "Why would she do all this and not tell me?" I stepped out from behind the garden trellis where I'd been watching. "Because you deserve your perfect day," I said softly, "whether I was here or not." Emma turned, tears streaming down her face. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then she ran to me, throwing her arms around me like she used to when she was small. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she whispered, "for everything." I held her close, careful not to wrinkle her dress. "Don't be, sweetheart. Just be happy. That's all I ever wanted." She pulled back, wiping her eyes carefully to preserve her makeup. "Will you walk me down the aisle? Please." I looked at David, who stood deflated but silent, and Jessica, who had finally run out of protests. Then I looked at my daughter, who was smiling at me with the same trust I remembered from all those years in the flower shop. "Of course," I said. "I promised to make this day perfect, didn't I?" As we took our places for the ceremony, I caught Mr. Chen's eye. He was grinning as he turned off the video screens, their job done. The truth was out, and my daughter was back in my arms. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes it's about keeping your promises even when no one expects you to, even when no one knows you're doing it. I had promised my daughter a perfect wedding, and that's exactly what she got. The fact that it exposed years of lies and manipulation was just a bonus that smelled like perfectly bloomed roses. The text came through while I was reviewing patient charts at the hospital. Party time changed to 2 p.m. Don't bother leaving work early. My hands trembled as I stared at my husband Marcus's message. Our son Oliver's 7th birthday party, the one we planned for 4 p.m. for months, was suddenly being moved without my input. The kids won't even notice you're not there, came his next text, dripping with the casual cruelty I'd grown unfortunately familiar with over the past year. Ever since he'd started his new job at the tech startup, Marcus had become increasingly dismissive of my role as both a mother and a trauma nurse. I took a deep breath, steadying myself against the nurse's station. My colleague Anna glanced over with concern. "Everything okay, Madeline?" Marcus changed Oliver's party time, I said, my voice tight. "He knows I can't leave until my shift ends at 3:30. Anna's face darkened. She'd witnessed Marcus's escalating behavior firsthand at the hospital Christmas party, where he loudly commented on how simple nursing was compared to his work in tech. "That's not right, Maddie. Oliver will be devastated if you're not there." What Marcus didn't know, what I'd kept carefully hidden during months of his increasing emotional manipulation, was that I'd been preparing for something like this. 6 months ago, when the city announced they were looking for donors to fund new playground equipment at Riverside Park, I quietly submitted a proposal. My years of saving, combined with an inheritance from my grandmother, had allowed me to become the primary donor for the project. The playground was being unveiled today, right before Oliver's party, the same party Marcus had just tried to make sure I'd miss. I picked up my phone, fingers hovering over the keys. A year ago, I would have begged Marcus to change the time back. 6 months ago, I might have frantically tried to rearrange my shift. But today, I simply wrote, "Okay, see you there." "What are you going to do?" Anna asked, watching me slip my phone back into my scrubs pocket. I managed a small smile. "I'm going to let him dig his own hole." The next few hours crawled by as I treated patients, my mind constantly drifting to Oliver, my sweet, dinosaur-obsessed little boy who'd been so excited about having his party at the park. He'd spent weeks telling his friends about the super special surprise that would be there. A surprise Marcus assumed was the magician he'd hired, not knowing about the new playground equipment I'd helped design with Oliver's interests in mind. At 1:45, I changed out of my scrubs into the clothes I brought, not the casual wear Marcus would expect, but a crisp blazer and pants appropriate for the playground dedication ceremony. The park director had been more than happy to schedule it right before Oliver's party when I'd explained the situation. As I drove to the park, another text came through from Marcus. "Kids are having a blast. Guess they don't need mom around after all." I parked my car and took a moment to collect myself, watching families stream into the park. The old playground equipment had been hidden behind construction barriers for weeks. Now those barriers were decorated with birthday balloons, Marcus's doing, but he hadn't noticed the small stage set up nearby or the city officials gathering for the ceremony. Through the crowd, I spotted Oliver in his favorite dinosaur t-shirt, bouncing excitedly as his friends arrived. Marcus stood off to the side with his phone, probably crafting another smug text about my absence. He'd been trying to edge me out of family events for months, always with the same excuse, that my work schedule was inconvenient for everyone else. I stepped out of my car, squaring my shoulders. The park director spotted me and waved, starting to gather everyone for the ceremony. Marcus was so busy texting that he didn't notice the crowd shifting, didn't see me making my way toward the small stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," the park director's voice boomed through the speakers, "before today's celebration begins, we'd like to take a moment to thank the generous donor who made our new dinosaur-themed playground possible." I watched Marcus's head snap up, confusion crossing his face as he finally noticed the gathering crowd. Oliver, standing near the construction barriers with his friends, was practically vibrating with excitement. "Please join me in welcoming Dr. Madeline Chen, whose contribution has transformed our park." The look on Marcus's face as I took the stage was something I'll never forget. But it was Oliver's beaming smile that made everything worth it, the months of planning, The extra shifts, the secret meetings with contractors to design every dinosaur-themed element. This was just the beginning. Marcus had no idea what else I had prepared. But he was about to learn that sometimes the people you try to push aside are the ones holding all the cards. The real party was just getting started. As I stepped off the stage, Oliver broke free from his friends and ran toward me, his face glowing with pride. "Mom, you did this? You made a dinosaur playground." I knelt down to his level, wrapping him in a tight hug. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Want to help me show everyone?" Marcus appeared behind Oliver, his earlier smugness replaced by barely contained anger. "Madeline, what is this? How did you?" He glanced around nervously at the gathering crowd of parents and city officials. "Not now, Marcus," I said calmly, taking Oliver's hand. "It's time for the unveiling." The construction barriers came down one by one, revealing the playground I'd spent months helping to design. A massive climbing structure shaped like a brontosaurus, its long neck forming a twisting slide, velociraptor-themed spring riders, a T-Rex climbing wall with fossil-shaped handholds. Even the ground had been specially designed with patterns that looked like dinosaur tracks embedded in stone. Oliver's friends rushed forward, squealing with excitement. "This is the coolest thing ever," one shouted. "Oliver, your mom is awesome." I watched Marcus's face cycle through emotions, shock, embarrassment, and finally, the dawning realization that his attempt to exclude me had backfired spectacularly. Parents approached to congratulate me, many of them familiar faces from the hospital where I treated their children. "Dr. Chen, this is incredible. Such a wonderful gift to the community." No wonder Oliver's been so excited about his party. Marcus tried to regain control of the situation, stepping forward with his phone. "Yes, well, we should get started with the magician I hired." "Actually," I interrupted smoothly, "the paleontologist from the Natural History Museum should be here first." Oliver mentioned how much his class enjoyed their museum field trip, so she brought some real fossils for the kids to examine. Right on cue, Dr. Sanders arrived with her specimen cases, and the kids gathered around in awe. Marcus stood off to the side, repeatedly checking his phone, his carefully planned party slipping through his fingers. "How long have you been planning this?" he finally asked, his voice low and tight with anger. 6 months, I replied, watching Oliver excitedly point out different dinosaur features to his friends. "Around the time you started telling me I wasn't essential to family events." "That's not what I—" "Yes, it is, Marcus. Every time my work schedule inconvenienced your plans. Every time you changed times or dates at the last minute. Every time you told our son I was too busy to care." A group of kids ran past us, heading for the slide. Oliver's voice carried across the playground. "Mom helped design it. She remembered all my favorite dinosaurs." Marcus flinched. "You're making me look bad in front of everyone." "No," I corrected him. "I'm showing our son that his mother keeps her promises even when others try to break them." "I had everything planned perfectly," he protested. "The magician, the cake." "The deliberately changed time," I added. The text gloating about my absence. He had the grace to look uncomfortable. I just thought it would be simpler. Simpler to exclude me from our son's birthday. To make me miss this moment. I gestured to the playground, where Oliver was now leading his friends in a pretend paleontology expedition. "Look at him, Marcus. Really look. Is your pride worth missing this joy?" Before he could answer, Oliver ran up to us. "Mom, Dad, Dr. Sanders says we can each take home a real fossil. And she's going to tell us about the new dinosaur they discovered." I smiled at our son. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Why don't you show your dad the special fossil area? I think he missed it during the unveiling." As Oliver dragged a subdued Marcus toward the fossil display, I caught Anna's eye across the playground. She'd arrived with her kids, right on schedule, carrying the special dinosaur cake I'd ordered, far more elaborate than the basic sheet cake Marcus had planned. This wasn't about revenge or one-upmanship. This was about showing my son that he could count on me, that his mother's absence from events wasn't because she didn't care, but because someone had been deliberately pushing her away. The party was transforming into something magical, but not because of my planning or Marcus's schemes. It was magical because of Oliver's pure joy, his excitement in sharing this moment with both his parents and his friends. As I watched Marcus kneel beside our son, examining fossils, and finally engaging in the moment rather than his phone. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The truth was out now. The real question was, what would Marcus do with it? The party wound down as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the new playground. Kids reluctantly said goodbye, clutching their fossil specimens and goodie bags filled with dinosaur-themed treasures. Oliver was still buzzing with excitement, showing his last remaining friends the hidden dinosaur footprints near the swings. Marcus hadn't said much since the fossil demonstration, but I'd noticed a change in his behavior. He had put his phone away, actually engaged with the children, and even managed a genuine smile when Oliver excitedly explained each dinosaur feature to him. As the last family left, Oliver ran up to me, his eyes bright. "Mom, this was the best birthday ever. Can we stay a little longer? Please?" I glanced at Marcus, who nodded slightly. 10 more minutes, sweetheart." While Oliver raced back to the T-Rex climbing wall, Marcus approached me, his earlier anger replaced by something that looked like shame. "The hospital board approved the donation 6 months ago," I said before he could speak. "I took extra night shifts to make it happen. All those times you thought I was choosing work over family, I was building this." "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked quietly. "Would you have listened? Or would you have tried to take over, like you did with every other family event this year?" He flinched at the truth in my words. "I didn't realize. I thought I was making things more efficient. Your schedule is so unpredictable." "No, Marcus, you were trying to erase me. Every change time, every last-minute reschedule, every text gloating about my absence, you were systematically pushing me out of Oliver's life." "That's not what He trailed off, watching Oliver pretend to be a paleontologist. "Okay, maybe it was. I got caught up in this image of being the fun parent, the one who could always be there. It was easier than admitting I was jealous." "Jealous? Of what?" "Of your connection with him. Oliver lights up when he talks about you. Mom saves people at the hospital. Mom knows all about dinosaurs. Mom never breaks her promises. I'm just Dad with his boring tech job and his phone." I let his words sink in, remembering all the times I caught him checking his work messages during family dinners, planning calls during Oliver's bedtime stories. "You did that to yourself, Marcus." I didn't need a grand gesture like this playground to be important to Oliver. I just needed to be present when I could and honest when I couldn't. Oliver called out from the top of the slide, "Mom, Dad, watch this." We both waved, and I added softly, "He needs both of us." Not competing, not undermining each other, just both of us. Marcus was quiet for a moment, then said, "I have notifications from 3 work groups right now. Usually, I'd be checking them, planning tomorrow's meetings. But watching him today, seeing how you made his dinosaur dreams come true, I missed so much by trying to prove I was the better parent. It's not too late to change that." He pulled out his phone, and for a moment, I thought he was going to check those notifications. Instead, he turned it off completely and put it in his pocket. "Oliver," he called out, "want to show me that fossil hunting technique Dr. Sanders taught you?" Our son's face lit up. "Really? You want to learn?" "Really, maybe we can come back this weekend, if Mom's free too." Oliver looked at me hopefully. I smiled. "I'll swap shifts with Anna. Saturday afternoon?" No last-minute changes, Marcus promised, and I heard the deeper meaning in his words. As the sky darkened and the park lights came on, we finally convinced Oliver it was time to go home. He was exhausted but happy, clutching his favorite fossil in one hand and holding both our hands with the other. "Best birthday ever," he mumbled sleepily as we walked to the cars. "Can we do this again tomorrow?" "The playground will be here whenever you want to visit," I assured him. That's the thing about building something real, it lasts. Marcus caught my eye over Oliver's head, and I saw understanding there. Real relationships, real connections with our children. They had to be built carefully, maintained consistently, and protected fiercely. No amount of planned parties or expensive gifts could replace that foundation. As I watched them drive away, Oliver already dozing in his car seat, I thought about what tomorrow would bring. Marcus would have to prove his words with actions, show that he truly understood the damage his behavior had caused. We had a long way to go in rebuilding trust. But today, watching Oliver's joy as his friends explored the playground, seeing Marcus finally put down his phone and engage with our son, it felt like a start. Sometimes the biggest changes begin with small moments. A dinosaur slide, a a shared smile, a switched-off phone. I turned back for one last look at the playground, now peaceful in the evening light. The dedication plaque caught the glow of a nearby lamppost. Dedicated to the children of our community, who remind us that the best gifts are the ones we share. Dr. Madeline Chen. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight in this moment it was enough to know that I'd kept my promise to my son. Sometimes standing your ground isn't about winning. It's about building something that lasts. Your husband came in yesterday to make some changes to the reservation. Jessica continued, her voice careful. He switched it to different dates and, well, he changed the second passenger's name to someone named Madison Collins. The world seemed to tilt sideways as Jessica's words sank in. Madison Collins, the new marketing assistant at David's firm. The one he'd been mentoring for the past 6 months. The one who just turned 24. He used the full amount you both saved, Jessica added softly. I wouldn't normally say anything, but I've known you since college, and when I saw him with her today picking up the tickets, I sat down heavily at my kitchen table, my legs suddenly unable to hold me up. 15 years of marriage, and this was how he chose to celebrate, by taking his girlfriend to Hawaii with the money we'd saved together. Thank you, Jessica, I managed to say, my voice surprisingly steady. I appreciate you telling me. After hanging up, I stared at the anniversary gift I'd been wrapping for David, a handmade photo album chronicling our years together. 15 years of memories, carefully curated and annotated. 15 years, apparently worth throwing away for a vacation with someone barely older than our daughter. As if on cue, David's key turned in the lock. He strolled in, looking disgustingly pleased with himself. When he saw me at the table, his smile faltered slightly. You're home early, he said, loosening his tie. I thought you had that charity committee meeting tonight. Jessica from Sunset Travel called, I replied, watching his face carefully. Interesting choice, changing our anniversary trip to next week, and changing my ticket to Madison's name. The color drained from his face, but only for a moment. Then his expression hardened into something I'd never seen before, or maybe had just refused to see. Well, you never want to do anything fun anyway, he sneered. All you care about is your volunteer work and book club. Madison actually knows how to enjoy life. You're too boring for a vacation like this. His words hit like physical blows, but I refused to let him see how much they hurt. 15 years of marriage, and this was who he really was, someone who could steal our anniversary savings and then blame me for his betrayal. Too boring? I echoed, my voice ice cold. Is that what you tell yourself to justify stealing our money? He actually laughed. Our money? I make 3 times what you do with your little part-time counseling practice. If anything, I'm the one who saved most of it. I stood up slowly, my mind surprisingly clear. You might want to check those numbers again, David. And maybe talk to Jessica about the travel insurance policy on those tickets. His smirk faltered. What are you talking about? You're not the only one who knows how to plan ahead, I replied, picking up my phone. Jessica, you can go ahead with what we discussed. David's face turned an interesting shade of purple as I hung up. What did you do? Let's just say Madison might want to pack her own sunscreen. Those tickets you picked up, they're not going to work out quite the way you planned. He lunged for his phone, probably to call the travel agency, but I was already heading upstairs. Behind me, I could hear him swearing as he got Jessica's voicemail. I had some packing to do and a few calls of my own to make. What David didn't know, what he'd never bothered to learn about his boring wife, was that I'd seen this coming months ago. The late nights at the office, the new cologne, the sudden interest in Hawaiian culture that coincided perfectly with Madison's arrival at his firm. I quietly started preparing, documenting everything. The joint account withdrawals, the suspicious charges, the text messages he thought I couldn't see. More importantly, I prepared for this exact scenario. You can't do this, he shouted up the stairs. I paid for those tickets. Actually, I called back. You might want to check the account those payments came from. The one you've been dipping into for your little dates with Madison? There's a reason I let you keep accessing it. The silence that followed was deafening. I could almost see him putting it together. How I'd let him think he was being clever. How I'd watched him dig his own hole deeper and deeper. Sarah, he finally said, using the soft voice that used to make my heart melt, let's talk about this. You're overreacting. I walked to the top of the stairs and looked down at him. Even now, he thought he could charm his way out of this. No, David, I don't think I am. But don't worry. You and Madison can still have your romantic getaway. You'll just need to find another way to pay for it. His face darkened. This is exactly why I needed someone else. You're always so calculating, so controlled. Madison is spontaneous, fun, and young enough to be your daughter. I finished for him. I wonder how spontaneous she'll feel when she finds out you can't afford that luxury resort you promised her. I turned away from his stunned face and continued packing. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. It's done. Tickets canceled. Insurance claim filed. Are you okay? Was I okay? My husband of 15 years had just revealed himself to be exactly the kind of man I'd always despised. He'd stolen our anniversary savings, planned to abandon me for a woman barely out of college, and then had the audacity to blame me for his choices. But surprisingly, I was okay. Better than okay. I felt like I was finally seeing everything clearly. I texted back, I'm perfect. And Jessica, thank you for being a real friend. David's voice floated up from downstairs, a mix of anger and panic now. Where are you going? We need to talk about this. I zipped up my suitcase, smiling slightly. He had no idea what was coming next, but he was about to learn that his boring wife had a few surprises of her own. I spent that night at my sister Kate's house, listening to David's increasingly desperate voicemails. Each one shifted between anger, manipulation, and guilt-tripping, an exhausting showcase of every tactic he used to control me over the years. You're acting crazy, Olivia, one message began. Madison means nothing to me. I just needed some excitement. Delete. You had no right to cancel those tickets. Do you know how this makes me look? Delete. Please, baby, let's talk about this. I made a mistake. You know you're the only one I really love. Delete. Kate sat beside me on the couch, pouring us both another glass of wine. He really doesn't get it, does he? He still thinks he can sweet-talk his way out of this. I smiled, feeling oddly calm. That's because he doesn't know about the meeting I have tomorrow. Meeting? Kate raised an eyebrow. With the board of directors at his firm. I replied, taking a sip of wine. Turns out Madison isn't the first young mentee David has taken under his wing, and his expense reports have some interesting discrepancies. Kate's eyes widened. How long have you been planning this? Since I found the first receipt for a business dinner at the Ocean View Hotel 3 months ago, I said. David always underestimated my boring attention to detail. He never questioned why I stayed friends with Jessica from the travel agency, or kept in touch with his firm's HR director, or maintained such detailed records of our finances. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Madison. David says you're trying to ruin everything because you're jealous. He says you're mentally unstable. I feel sorry for you. I showed the message to Kate, who snorted. Mentally unstable? You're the most level-headed person I know. That's what makes this so perfect, I replied, forwarding the message to my lawyer. Every accusation, every attempt to paint me as crazy or vindictive, it's all just more evidence. The next morning, I dressed carefully in my most professional outfit and headed to David's firm. He was waiting in the lobby, his face a mix of confusion and anger. What are you doing here? He demanded, grabbing my arm. This is my workplace. I calmly removed his hand. Yes, and I have a 9:30 meeting with the board. You might want to join us. His face paled. What meeting? What are you talking about? Oh, did they tell you? I smiled. They're very interested in reviewing your expense reports, especially the ones involving your mentorship program. Before he could respond, Amanda from HR appeared. Mrs. Bennett, the board is ready for you. David tried to follow us, but Amanda stopped him. Mr. Bennett, please wait in your office. We'll call you when we're ready. The next hour was illuminating. I presented my carefully compiled evidence. Expense reports showing business dinners at romantic restaurants, hotel charges for client meetings that coincided with Madison's business trips, even receipts for gifts charged to the company account. This pattern goes back further than Ms. Collins, I explained, pulling up more documents. There were 2 other young employees before her, both of whom left the firm suddenly. I've been in contact with them as well. The board members exchanged glances. The CEO, Mr. Richardson, looked particularly grim. And you have documentation for all of this? Every receipt, every text message, every inappropriate use of company funds, I confirmed. I also have evidence that he's been inflating his expense reports to fund his personal activities. When they finally called David in, his swagger had disappeared. He took one look at the documents displayed on the screen and seemed to deflate. Care to explain these discrepancies, Mr. Bennett? Mr. Richardson asked. David's attempt at a defense was painful to watch. He tried to claim I was making things up out of jealousy, that I was trying to destroy his career because of our marital problems. But the evidence was irrefutable. Given the severity of these violations, Mr. Richardson concluded, we have no choice but to terminate your employment, effective immediately. Our legal team will be in touch regarding repayment of misappropriated funds. David looked shell-shocked. You can't do this. I've been with this firm for 12 years. You should have thought of that before using company resources to fund your affairs. Mr. Richardson replied coldly. Security will escort you to clear out your office. As David was led away, Madison appeared in the doorway, her young face confused and frightened. What's happening? David? I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Miss Collins, Amanda from HR called. We need to discuss your position with the firm as well. I left them to it, walking out of the building into the bright morning sunshine. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. How did it go? Exactly as planned, I replied. Is everything set for next week? Your ticket to Maui is confirmed, she texted back. 5-star resort, ocean view suite. Much nicer than the one he booked for himself. I smiled, thinking of the travel insurance money that had been refunded to my private account, the one David knew nothing about. The same account where I'd been transferring funds every time he dipped into our savings for his business expenses. When I got back to Kate's house, there were 17 missed calls from David. I listened to only one voicemail. How could you do this to me? I've lost everything. This is all your fault. No, David. This was all you're doing. I just made sure you faced the consequences. Kate was waiting with lunch and a knowing smile. So do I get to hear what happened? I sat down, helping myself to a sandwich. Let's just say David's going to have a lot of free time to think about his choices, and his girlfriend is probably updating her resume. And the Hawaii trip? Oh, that's still happening, I said. Just not with him. Want to help me pack? My phone buzzed again. David, of course. But this time, I didn't even look at the message. I was done being the boring, predictable wife he could take for granted. It was time to write a new chapter, and this one started with a sunset view in Maui. Kate raised her glass in a toast. To my sister, the most beautifully calculating woman I know. I clinked my glass against hers. To consequences. And to think none of this would have happened if David had just stopped to consider one simple fact. Sometimes, the quiet ones are the ones you should watch out for. 1 week later, I was sitting on a private balcony in Maui, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and pink. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate. David just showed up at my house looking for you. You should have seen his face when I showed him your beach photos. I smiled, sipping my Mai Tai. David had spent the past week desperately trying to piece his life back together. According to Kate, he even attempted to reconcile with Madison, only to discover she'd already moved on to a younger, wealthier partner at a different firm. The resort staff delivered another round of tropical drinks, courtesy of Jessica's VIP connections. Mrs. Bennett, there's a call for you at the front desk. Your lawyer? Perfect timing. I've been expecting this call. The divorce papers have been filed, my lawyer informed me, and given the evidence of financial misconduct and company fraud, he's in no position to contest anything. He's already agreed to our terms. All of them? I asked, watching a whale breach in the distance. Every single one. He can't afford not to. Between the company's demands for reimbursement and the legal fees, he's practically bankrupt. He's moved in with his brother. I thanked her and returned to my balcony, feeling lighter than I had in years. The sun was setting on my marriage, but it felt more like a dawn. My phone buzzed again. Another message from David. Please, Olivia, I know I messed up, but this is cruel. You've destroyed my life. I considered responding, maybe pointing out that he'd destroy his own life with his choices. But instead, I simply blocked his number. Some conversations weren't worth having anymore. The next morning, I joined a group of fellow travelers for a sunrise yoga session on the beach. Among them was a woman named Julia, recently divorced herself, who had become my impromptu vacation friend. You know what amazes me? She said as we walked back to the resort. How they never see it coming. These men spend years underestimating us, treating us like we're boring or naive, and then act shocked when we turn out to be stronger than they imagined. I nodded, thinking of David's stunned face in that board meeting. They mistake kindness for weakness, patience for passivity, and organizational skills for being boring, Julia added with a laugh. By the way, my brother's law firm is looking for someone to manage their client relations. After hearing your story, I think you'd be perfect. I raised an eyebrow. Really? They need someone detail-oriented, someone who knows how to handle difficult situations diplomatically. Sound familiar? I took her card, tucking it away for future reference. Maybe it was time for a career change too. Back in my suite, I found an email from Amanda at David's former firm. Several other women had come forward with similar stories about David's mentorship program. The company was implementing new policies and mandatory training. Sometimes one person's downfall could lead to positive changes for others. Kate sent me pictures of the divorce papers being delivered to David at his brother's house. He tried to argue that you tricked him, she wrote. His lawyer shut that down fast. You should have seen his face when he realized you get to keep the house. I spent my final days in Hawaii doing everything David had always claimed I was too boring to enjoy: snorkeling, hiking to waterfalls, taking surfing lessons. Each new experience felt like shedding another layer of his influence, of the limitations he had tried to place on me. On my last evening, I sat on the beach, watching the sunset and reflecting on the past few weeks. David had wanted excitement, had thrown away 15 years of marriage for it. In the end, he'd gotten more excitement than he bargained for, just not the kind he wanted. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Your return flight's confirmed. First class, of course. Oh, and you'll never guess who booked a budget ticket to Hawaii today. I could guess. David trying to recreate the romantic getaway he'd planned, probably with whatever money he'd managed to scrape together. But he'd find the resort fully booked. Jessica had made sure of that. Some might call it petty revenge. I called it karma. When I finally boarded my flight home, I felt nothing but peace. David's betrayal had hurt, yes. But it had also freed me, free from his subtle put-downs, his dismissive attitude, his constant undermining of my worth. Kate was waiting at the airport, grinning as I emerged, my newly tanned skin and relaxed smile a stark contrast to the woman I had been just weeks ago. Look at you, not so boring after all, huh? I hugged her tight. You know what I realized? I was never boring. I was just waiting for the right moment to be exciting. As we drove home, passing the office building where David had built and lost his career, Kate glanced at me. Any regrets? I thought about the past few weeks, the revelations, the calculated moves, the satisfying downfall of a man who thought he could discard me without consequences. Just one, I said with a smile. I should have done this years ago. My phone buzzed one last time, Julia's law firm, requesting an interview. I smiled, thinking about how David had always insisted I was wasting my potential with my little counseling practice. Sometimes the biggest victory isn't in the revenge itself, but in the life you build from the ashes of betrayal. And mine was just beginning.